And welcome, everybody. Do we have anybody new with us for the first time? I thought Mary, you looked new face. Welcome. Which part of the country are you in? Sorry, you're muted.
I'm unmuted now. I'm from Buena Park.
Oh, goodness, you're just down the street.
And which part of the century? Yeah, I go back to Knott's to about 1950
Oh,
or
goodness.
56. Yeah,
Be
long
kind,
time.
Be kind and don't point out all of my mistakes, and everybody won't know. So appreciate it. How many people here, just a show of hands, have been to Knott's over the years? I know Joey has.
Of course.
Yeah, a whole bunch of people. It's a great amusement park for folks who are not entirely familiar with it. As Mary mentioned, it's in Buena Park, California, and it's just down the street from Disneyland. During the time that I worked at Disney, started there in '76, we had a tremendous amount of people coming in to see the American Parade event, and we would have flyers printed up that said, "Gee, we're really too crowded today. Why don't you go to Knott's Berry Farm for the day and come back here at night?" You can't imagine people doing that, in today's world. We also, at that time, Disneyland was closed in the off-season Mondays and Tuesdays for maintenance, and just it was light attendance, no reason to keep the park open. Knott's would be open, closed rather than on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So again, if you showed up at Disneyland on a Monday or Tuesday in, say, October, they had a little flyer, "Hey, we're closed, go down the street to Knott's," with a little map showing you how to get there. So a very friendly rivalry between the two theme parks that you would not see in today's world. I'm going to concentrate pretty much on the earlier days of Knott's Berry Farm, basically the ghost town era, and some of the other attractions. Over the years, like many other parks, it has become more thrill oriented. Today, it's got 10 different roller coasters. Some of them are rated very extreme, become very popular for that sort of thing. Unfortunately, Knott's has been in the news the last week. Last weekend, a bunch of teenagers on social media said, "Hey, let's all meet up at Knott's and have a big fight." And they did. It was last Friday or Saturday night. They had to evacuate the park. There was yelling, screaming, but people thought it was an active shooter. Everybody had to race out of the park. And last night they put a new chaperone policy in place that if you're under 17, you have to be chaperoned by a adult 21 and above. And it shows how things have changed. So let me get going here with some pictures instead of some talking. And let me go over here 1 second. So I'm going to start with some souvenir slides of Knott's. And I'll start with these Panaview ones here. So let me just pull up the first one, and I will share the screen, or try to. All right, share screen. Let me try it again here. I didn't have the picture open at first when I tried it. That makes a difference. Okay, so everybody should be able to see Knott's Berry Farm here.
Got it.
Don, I've made you co-host, so if you can keep an eye on the doorway for us, appreciate it.
We'll do so.
Great. So again, Knott's Berry Farm.
Excuse me, but for those who don't know Knott's Berry Farm, you could tell how it started with jam.
I was just going to do that. Boy, you
I'm sorry. Okay.
No, you just perfectly led into it. Knott's Berry Farms did not start out as a custom-made, purpose-built amusement park. Started with a small fruit jam on the side of the road where Walter Knott sold his new hybrid berry that he had come up with, the boysenberry. The berries were selling well, and his wife, Cordelia, decided that they needed to make some more money. So in 1934, she took out the family china and started serving chicken dinners in a small stand, which is now grown into Mrs. Knott's Chicken restaurant at the park. Well, the chicken dinners turned out to be very, very popular, and people were lined up all over the place to get a seat at the table. So Walter started building out Ghost Town. He was a fan of ghost towns and American history and that. And he had been going out into the desert and sending crews out to buy actual buildings, pick them up and move them back to Knott's Berry Farm. He bought local schools. He actually went as far as Kansas to buy a school and bring it and pick it up and move it to the site. And he kept expanding the ghost town. He had an employee that was his master designer, would find these buildings sometimes in pieces, bring them back and build out the ghost town. Finally, in the 1950s, they decided that they, or it might have been even into the 60s, they started deciding that they would need to start charging admission because there were so many people, and it was a whole quarter to get into the Knott's Berry Farm. Then they decided that they needed to start building some rides and make a real theme park out of this. So this was added in 1960 as the Calico Mine Train ride. And it's really interesting to see how things have changed between the years with Knott's and Disney. Disney, of course, now famous Big Thunder Railroad. Well, Knott's had this really very advanced ride for 1960 where you get on a small train, you go through a mountain and you see the workings of a mine. The thing that was interesting was the figures were always very poorly done. I always thought the early figures were sort of the work I would turn out. Well, over the years, Knott's has modernized. Garner Holt Industries has put in some really nice figures, modernized it. But the Calico Mine Train was a very, very big change for the time for Knott's. We're going to be seeing more of the thing over the years. Here's if you go into the mine train, multi-level, you had the figures out there, animated, swinging pickaxes, sounds of mine stuff going on. But you can see this was done on several levels. So the whole mountain was basically hollow inside, and the train would wind its way all through it. A very, very great ride. It's still there today, as I said, modernized. If you get a chance to go to it, go visit it. In this particular case, I think it's interesting that whoever was taking the picture here didn't realize there's a guy in modern clothes down here doing some work in it. So that's the trouble. If you go in on a day off to take your pictures, you have to make sure that the workers are not in there too. But more of the mine train. Again, for people that had been on the mine train at Disneyland, not the Big Thunder one, but the one going through the Nature's Wonderland and through the train ride with the black light exhibit, this would look familiar. And the Calico Mine Company there, American Indian. Knott's has always had a large amount of Native American displays and performances. You're going to see Indians throughout the both the souvenir slides and also the amateur slides that I'll be showing people have taken. In about 1966, Walter Knott's commissioned what they describe as a brick-by-brick replica of Independence Hall from Philadelphia. I've never gone and actually see if it is brick by brick, but it's very, very close. As I said, Walter was very patriotic, and this was a good 10 years before Disney decided to go with the bicentennial theme for its celebration. So they built this entire replica, and then we'll see some of the interior displays as well. So the assembly room where they all got together to vote about succeeding from the United Kingdom. Period pieces which would have been used in the hall. In some of the cases, when Walter was building the ghost town, he not only bought the entire building, but the entire contents of it. So he ended up with a tremendous collection of authentic Western memorabilia. Some of it recently sold at a giant major auction done by Heritage Auctions. Replica of the Liberty Bell. Come on in, it's we're waiting for you. We'll see more views inside. This was another big addition for Knott's, and again, well before Disney did anything with Splash Mountain. This went in, I think, in '68 or '69, a giant log flume ride. And what I remember going in the first time was really interesting because you basically get on the log, you go up the mountain, and you come down the other side. But in between, you're going through this forest scene indoors, and they had odorizers with the scent of pine forest. Now Disney has odorizers when you're going through California Adventure and the soaring over California sort of thing. But this was really well done. It also has been modernized with Garner Holt animatronics in it, so it's a very state-of-the-art ride. But again, this was well before 20 years or so before Disney ended up with a water flume ride. So again, Knott's is always thought as the little brother to Disneyland out here in Southern California theme park business, but it really more than holds its own. Before the pandemic, they were getting about 4.5 million visitors a year, so it's a very successful operation. Here's the lift going.
Is this the only location for Knott's?
It's the only Knott's Berry Farm. They did have I don't know if they still have it at the Mall of America in Minneapolis. They had a Knott's, the mini Knott's inside of that. I don't know if that's still there, but that's the only Knott's. Knott's, Walter died in, I'm trying to remember what year, late 70s. His family kept the business going until about 97. And then they sold it off to a theme park company. And so now it's part of a conglomerate. It's no longer family owned, but it had been family owned and operated for 14 years after he died. And then they sold it for 247 million, I think, when they sold it off. So, but yeah, it's if you want to go see Knott's, I don't know about the Mall of America these days, but this is where you got to go. They have.
Is it in Los Angeles? It's in Los Angeles, right?
It's in Buena Park, which is about 30 miles south of Los Angeles. So
Not far from Anaheim.
nope, just drive down the 5 towards Anaheim. It's about 10 miles north of Anaheim, and you just drive down and look for the signs for. You'll see them on the side of the road for Knott's Berry Farm, and it's real easy to get to and real convenient. Now they have several themed lands at Knott's, just like Disneyland has Main Street and Frontierland and that sort of thing. So you have, and it's changed over the years as they modernized the theme rides. They had a Roaring 20s airfield that got changed over the years. This was a Mexican sombrero hat ride. I don't believe this is there anymore. I think this is one that they took out. Mentioned schools. This school, he went and bought the entire school, everything in it, the books, the desks, the stove and everything, picked it up and moved it. A number of the buildings in the Knott's compound actually have been named for the National Historical Register and have signs on it because he had the foresight to pick them up and save them. People in other places are just knocking them down and putting other things in their place. This, at the time this was taken, was called the John Wayne Theater. It's been renamed since then. John Wayne was real popular in Orange County when he died, plastered a name on everything, the theater, an airport, that sort of stuff. As political winds swing back and forth, he became less popular and less well known. So his name came off. But major theater, I can remember going in there and seeing a lot of Snoopy shows, and Knott's has had a long relationship with the Charles Schulz estate and has today Camp Snoopy is their major area for children's rides. But they had a big stage show. I remember taking my kids and going and see that here at the former John Wayne Theater. Again, this gives you a good idea of what Walter Knott put together as just a general waiting area for his wife's chicken restaurant. Built this town out. A lot of these are actual buildings that got picked up. If you're also in the Southern California area, we've mentioned Calico Ghost Town up in the mountains outside of Los Angeles on your way out to Las Vegas. That was another Walter Knott's project, again, gathering buildings, taking there and putting them in place. But this is the sort of ambience that he would have, hiring people in period costume to walk around. We can see some Native Americans here, a sheriff in the background. bench you see against the wall is there's two benches like that at the park. One of these old prospectors and one of some dance hall girls. And they've been there for 50 plus years, and people are still flocking in and waiting in line to get their pictures taken, posing with them. So a lot of these pictures again pose for the souvenir slides. The stagecoach ride did not really go through much through the middle of the area. You know, horses and crowds are not always a great combination, but there is a separate track for the stagecoach ride to run around. Right behind the stagecoach driver, you can see a sign for the Birdcage Theater, another long running show at Ghost Town, going in and having performances in there. And they had all these shops, and the shops are all sorts of things you can still go in and buy. In some cases, they were just displays. So in this particular one, you can see all sorts of things behind glass cases. But you can also go into a replica of an antique print shop and get a newspaper printed with your name in the headline. You know, Bill Cotter, you know, wins Indy 500 or something, printed up on your Knott's Berry Farm newspaper. Then you go home and amaze all your friends. Inside the Calico Saloon, dance hall girl up in the bar there dancing away as the singer is entertaining up above. These slides had all turned horribly, terribly red. Luckily, the computer able to bring back 90% of the look and feel of them. As I, excuse me, mentioned, he bought all sorts of memorabilia, including trains, wagons, stagecoaches, buckboards, all sorts of things. So unlike a lot of places where you were advised to stay away, not touch things, no, Knott's come on board, put your kids on the cab of the train, take your picture, have a great time. A number of these things, unfortunately, have worn out over the years. And as you can imagine, with 4.5 million people a year coming in for 50, 60 years, and everybody wants to sit on the train, which is now sitting in the Southern California sun, the wood dries out, and some of these things have been replenished or replaced. And also some of them were just sold off in the auction that I mentioned, that they had just gotten to the point where they were no longer useful for public display. Recreation of a San Francisco cable car. This would actually drive around with a motor. The train here is real interesting. It's an actual working steam locomotive. It goes through the park, not around the edges of it like the Disneyland train, but this one cuts right through the park. We'll see more of that. I don't think they've done this in many years, but they would have holdups of it. We'll see some of the robbers coming aboard the train and demanding people with their money. But it's, again, a full-size working steam locomotive. Most of the train equipment came from the Denver and Rio Grande Railway. It's a narrow gauge railroad and lovingly maintained. This has been very popular over the years. The Panning for Gold exhibit, just like Disneyland, this was all pretty flat when it was built. So all these mountains you're seeing on the left and right side are made out of concrete. Just as Disney had its famous rock man who would go and carve concrete to make it look like rock, Knott's had a guy, and we understand that the two of them would compare notes and trade secrets and go back and forth and try to make my mountain look more realistic than your mountain. So the Panning for Gold area has been moved around several times, but you can go out there, pay your money, take your chances with a pan of gold. They'll teach you how to do it. And you can get a tiny, tiny little bottle of a tiny, tiny little flake of gold and take it home as your souvenir of Knott's. Mentioned he bought all sorts of things, churches, schools, stores, that sort of thing, picked it up. Knott's is now very much more hectic than it used to be in the good old days. We're going to see a lagoon area that's gone, Old McDonald's farm, a petting zoo, that sort of thing. So a lot of it has made way for roller coasters and other theme park rides. But this was, again, this sort of a place if you wanted a moment of quiet introspection, you could go to the Church of Reflections. Tombstone, Boot Hill here, and Indian Village up in the back. Again, this lagoon, unfortunately, the whole area is gone because it's been replaced with a roller coaster sitting on top of it. But this was a little paddle wheel boat. You can take a ride around on the lagoon. It's full of, you can see obviously ducks and swans. We can see more of the lagoon going on, but the boat named after Cordelia.
What year were most of these photos taken?
These would be in the 60s.
Okay.
This group would be in the 60s. So I'm gonna
And
go.
what year, then the park opened around the 60s?
No, park opened, the Ghost Town opened in the 50s. And then
Okay.
became that was just a walk-in, walk around as you're enjoying yourself. And then it became a gated attraction in the 60s.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Bill,
it was open before Disneyland by 3 or 4 years at least, because I remember going there as a child and
Yeah.
Disneyland didn't even exist, and we'd go
Yeah.
for the
me too.
day.
I was wondering, Bill, did you mention how Mr. Knott made his money to buy all this stuff?
By selling jam, boysenberry jam, and then,
Seriously, that's what he used?
yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
yeah,
That's why it's the berry farm.
the stand became big popular, and then the chicken restaurant became popular too. So these
Chicken and-
are slides taken by Finley. Finley used a very, very inferior film. They're in two groups. These I restored a few years ago, and then I had others I just finished this week. But just like Disney, you had cars. This probably came from the same company, probably came from Arrow Development. But you had a lot of similarity. Like I said, a very friendly rivalry between the two of them. So you could go and drive your antique car around. More of the singer at the Calico Ghost Town saying, "Go west, go east, just go to Disneyland. We're closed today." And the train going by the Boot Hill, and down below the prospector is a figure in the stream. He's not a real prospector. So let me leave this batch. Hang on, I just have to switch over to another area. We're going to look at some more slides from the Finley Corporation. But again, these are 1950s or early 60 views of the park. You can sometimes sort of tell by the dress and clothing that people are wearing. People tended to be a little less formal here than say at the World's Fair, because it's also a lot hotter generally than the 64 World's Fair. But looking at this, we're not seeing a lot of men in suits and ladies in formal outfits. So my guess is more 60s than 50s for this particular one. Again, they've had quite a few things where the Native Americans were there to talk about their heritage and pose for pictures. I mentioned the figures here. We have the two guys here, and you can get your picture taken with them. There's also two dance hall gals. My dad had come out to California before I made it. He came out here on a business trip, and he went to Disneyland, and he also went to Knott's, and he came back and was teasing us that he met some really, really cute dance hall girls and was thinking about leaving my mom for them. And we were like, what? And then he showed us the picture. You'll see their shots coming up. But yeah, again, the simple sort of thing. These entertainers have been there for 60 years and 70 years now, and people are still taking pictures. So just more views of Ghost Town. Again, most of it's still there. Some of the buildings have been razed and torn down. There was a big museum there of a lot of Western items that, as crowds stopped paying attention to them, they were taken off display, and the building was razed. Here's the gals, and they're. I have to go find my dad's picture, but they great fun going. Just sit the clock back and take a picture and recreate the old times. Again, the steam train, Denver and Rio Grande Railroad. Over the years, we'll see some more pictures when we get to the amateur shots of just how this went right smack down through the middle of the park. Now they have to put up fences and gates and keep people back from it, because back in the 50s and 60s, people had enough sense not to walk in front of a steam train as it's coming down the track. Now today, everybody's entitled. I can do whatever I want in a litigious society. you have to keep people from doing things like walking in front of steam trains. So it's kind of a sad.
Were they actually steam powered? Because you don't see any
Oh,
smoke
yeah.
coming out.
No, well, again, this was taken during the day. There's a little steam right down here, if you look,
Yeah.
a little coming out here. So, but a lot of these were taken again with, you notice there's no people around, no crowds. Come and take it early in the morning or take it on an off day to, you know, make your photography a little easier. But yeah, it's a real life working steam train.
Hmm.
The Indian chief is making a speech and the conductor is getting a big laugh at the joke. I wish we knew what the joke was, but it looks like it was a good one. Another view, again, the same picture as before, souvenir slide. And they came on board and hailed you up. So, you know, today, of course, I don't think they do this. Somebody would be likely to shoot back or file a lawsuit for PTSD that the gunfire drove him into a drink or something. But came on board and you know, made everybody nervous. And then the sheriff's posse would ride up and they'd all run off. Indian Village. Speaking of Indian villages, one of the things they did after the Expo 86 up in Vancouver, General Motors had a very popular exhibit up at Expo 86 called Spirit Lodge, and they brought that back down, and it was a very popular attraction here at Knott's, again, continuing their long run with Native American interaction. More of the train, some more steam coming out of it. Candy Parlor, again, all these shops and everything, you can still go to Knott's today. Spend a fortune. You can actually still go to Knott's today and not have to pay admission if you want to go to the shops and including the chicken restaurant. So you can come in, park your car, go in, and if you eat and get out within a certain period of time, I think it's about 2.5 hours, you don't have to pay for admission. In the pre-pandemic days, Knott's Mrs. Knott's Chicken Restaurant is still very, very popular. It's got a long, long line. In the pre-pandemic days, Carol and I would always make a pilgrimage there on Super Bowl Sunday. With neither one of us being Super Bowl fans, we'd go down to the town of Orange to go antique shopping. But we would go and get to Mrs. Knott's Chicken Restaurant, and they'd be standing there at the door saying, "Come on in, please, nobody's here." And you could walk right in, sit right down, have a wonderful chicken meal, get up and leave, and no paying for parking. So again, it's still got a free component to it. They don't have this sort of thing much anymore, live burros and grizzly prospectors wandering around, but again, part of the ambience of the 50s and 60s. I don't know if this is the original stand or a recreation of it, but this is how the whole empire began. You could come and buy boysenberries. I mentioned it's a hybrid of two other berries that he put together. It's found that they grew very well. Started selling jam. You can see here, there's also a sign for boysenberry punch. So this was how the whole Knott's empire began, with a roadside stand on the side of California Route 39, which is now Beach Boulevard, and selling jams to people that came by. And then with the Depression in 1934, Cordelia trotted out the China, opened her restaurant, and that ended up giving us Knott's Berry Farm. More of the Church of the Reflections. And again, mention the Penny for Gold ride, not a ride, attraction has been very, very popular over the years. Somebody online was saying that they remembered the organ grinder monkeys. And you can see here, the monkeys, he had to stay, please stay out of the circle and please don't tease the monkeys. So you can see that there's a chalk line down on the ground. The monkey is on a rope that let him get up to the edge of the circle, so he didn't go into the crowd. And the organ grinder would grind in traditional fashion. He would grind away, playing music here. And the monkey was very, very happy to go out to the edge of the circle and take your coins. And he would bring it back to the organ grinder, who would throw them in that bag there on the side of the thing and give the monkey a piece of food for his efforts. And the monkey would go back out and, you know, grab more money. But the monkeys, you don't want them getting too close because they'll grab your eyeglasses, your watches, your nose, your lips, anything like that. So again, don't tease them. They definitely had an attitude to them. Stagecoach rides, the overland stage ride, popular here. The bandits have stopped robbing the train and now they're robbing the stagecoach. The stagecoach had a trouble, just like the Disneyland stagecoach. Everybody wants to ride up top because it's a better view. It's more airy on a hot day, and it also becomes top heavy. So you have to be very careful about not tipping these things over. So over the years, they started having to really limit the number of people that could ride up on the top of them. And if nobody wanted to ride down the bottom, you could still ride up top. But in this particular one, there's 8 visitors up there. In later days, would get it down to no more than 4. Statue that's out there, it's still there, been moved around, but this is the early prospector in his burrow. We'll see him in a couple different situations as he's been moved around in the park over the years. And the statue and the real inspiration for it. So he looks just like he'd be perfect in an old movie, Gabby Hayes look-alike sort of thing. He and Gene Autry would look real well together in the screen. Here again, this is still a souvenir slide, but this the Calico mine train in the background, the train here for the going around. Today, this has a fence around it, an attendant that has to open a gate and let you go across the track when the train is not coming, stop you when it is. But this is just how it was. Keep walking around, walk right up to the train, right into the mine train. More of the gold panning. And that's it for the souvenir slide. So we're going to get into the amateur ones here. And let me go back here 1 second.
So what's the park look like today? Is it more modernized, all different attractions?
It's been modernized and it has what you call it, like I said, 10 roller coasters. But the thing I'm concentrating on is the ghost town side. That's still pretty much the same. So we're going to look at some amateur slides now. Some of them are restored, some of them we'll get to later. I've not had time to do it. But this was the early 70s, this particular shot, about 72, 73, if I remember right. And just come out and get your picture taken in front of the train. Here's the dance hall girl mannequins out there. They're very stoic. They let you, flirt with them as much as you'd like. And a plastic dog out there. I don't know what his particular story is. There's probably some knowledge of that. I'm not sure why he's particularly there. We're going to jump into some amateur slides from 1959. Again, with some of these things, you get views that you see in the souvenir slides, and other times you get totally different ones. This is the water wheel going into the panning for gold area. And here's the panning for gold area from a slightly different angle as before. Good views again of just what made Knott special. All these old buildings. You can see the gold mine walk off to the side. They had all sorts of things that he also done besides just bringing back old buildings. He may try to make them entertaining. He had a haunted shack. I think the haunted shack, I don't know if it's still there. I think it may be gone. Was built at an angle. So when you walked in, it looked like water was flowing uphill. Your eyes would be telling you one thing, your ears would be telling you another as you try to walk through the building. Knott's became very big in going to haunted venue for Halloween. So again, Disney has done it now, but again, Knott's was a trendsetter in some of this stuff by having Knott's Scary Farm instead of just Knott's Berry Farm. They would start having the ghost town with ghosts and zombies and vampires and that sort of thing. So it's become a very popular thing over the years. Now Knott's has it, Disney has it, Universal has it, but Knott's was the first one to capitalize on people's thrill of being scared to death. More of the dance hall gals. Again, this was back in 1959. This is an area gone from the park, Old McDonald's Farm, a petting zoo. They had this whole area here with seals. We'll see up here. It's funny how often this goat shows up on the roof. I've been looking to see if there's a rope keeping him up here on the roof, or if he just liked to be up there. But I've got a number of shots of him standing up on the roof. I figure they must have put him up there, and maybe they just kept feeding him up there. But the goat liked to stand up on the roof. That's 1959 for this batch. Let's go get some more souvenir ones. We're going to stay in 1959, October 1959 to be exact. So penny for gold, you can look here and see the price. That real real gold, 50 cents. And that was kind of interesting to think that it was only a quarter to get into the whole area. And then you're right, your experience here was 50 cents. Go get a ticket at the Nugget Shack. And you somewhere we still have some little vials, little bottles that we got. These guys actually had names. I was able to drag them up. That's Handsome Brady, Whiskey Bill, and let's see here on the sign. It's reserved for Handsome Brady, Whiskey Bill, and their friends. So people love to go and get their pictures taken with them. Borax Mine Train, for folks that are familiar with the Death Valley area. This is an actual train that came out of there. You had the famous, what was it, 20 mule team, borax trains, made famous in the TV show and that. Well, the mule trains gave way to railroads. And then over the time, railroads gave way to trucks, but this came out of the Death Valley area. And you could go into jail. One of the things that my kids got a kick out of is they had a thing where you would talk to a guy in jail, and the mannequin would be carrying on. Hey, it's a pretty white blouse you got on. Hey, that's a nice green hat. And it's of course a guy down the road that's looking at you, got a microphone, and he'd be insulting you. You think you're pretty tough coming here and get me, sort of thing. So just a comedy little bit that they had going on. And just some more views of the area. You can also see in the background antique cars, anything that was old, Walter tended to like. These slides were very, very dark, so I did the best I could to try to punch them back to some semblance of life. Nell and Bell, they seem to always be near a popcorn wagon. This is the lagoon area. I just finished restoring these this week. You can see there's a Indian in a canoe in the background, but this was just a very quiet area. The Cordelia boat went trotting around it, but they had all sorts of things that you don't see normally together. We normally don't see penguins and flamingos flocking together. But again, this is what made Knott so different. It was very relaxed, very different environment than it is today. More of the McDonald's Farm area. The goat is not up here in this particular shot. He must have been taking a break. We will see more of him. Oh, here he is. Okay. So again, I don't see any rope or anything keeping him up there, but he just seems to be happy up there. So Old McDonald's opened his barnyard so little people are big can see and feel the animals. The stagecoach attraction, again, you could come in the set of stairs up here to the top, take you up if you wanted to ride on the top or ride down at the bottom. The statue we saw before. Here he's on top of a fountain area. So again, this is October 59. I'm going to skip over here to some other pictures. We're going to go to September 1965. Most of these have not been restored, so they're going to be a little dark, or the colors are going to be off. But again, it's the Knotts that I particularly enjoyed when I first got out here. So steam train, the Calico Saloon. We've seen the interior shots of that with the dance hall gals. More of the Seal Act. Whoops, went by that too fast. The lagoon right up against the parking area. Again, right now, this area became much more valuable for roller coasters and other things like that. Again, people might get a kick out of some of the vintage cars in the background.
Bill,
Yes.
another comment on the parking. I noticed it in one of the other photographs. I remember this as a kid, that you could park under the trees. I mean, it was a very casual, I mean, they had it lined out and it was paved, but there were trees around so you could park in the shade. Your car didn't get too hot. Where now it's just a giant parking lot or
Yeah.
structure, probably these days. I haven't been there in a long time, but
No structure yet, still just a giant parking lot.
okay.
Yeah. That's interesting about the trees. Again, I guess unfortunately over time, you need more parking, out come the trees.
Yep, exactly.
Totem pole. Again, the ever popular penny for gold. And what's interesting is it's still 50 cents, so the price has not gone up. One of the things we like to, every time we go to Knott's, you have the different restaurants and that. But one of the things I had never seen before I got to Knott's was funnel cake. So back at the '64 World's Fair, the big thing to go and get was a Belgian waffle. For us going to Knott's Berry Farm and get a funnel cake, which is basically you take a dough, drizzle it into hot oil. It kind of winds itself in a kind of Gordian knot sort of thing. You put more powdered sugar on top of it, gets all over your clothes, and they taste just wonderfully. You can also get them with strawberries and that, just like Belgian waffles. But there's a when we go, the last time we were there was probably about 3 years ago. They had a free day for law enforcement, so all we had to do is go and show LAPD ID, and they let you in. We were saying it was probably the safest place on the planet Earth because everybody online was taking out their LAPD or LA Sheriff or Buena Park Police IDs, and I think 90% of the people in there were law enforcement that day. But again, bam, straight off, you have to go and get a funnel cake, at least for the Cotter family.
Was this whole park built to represent a different section of the United States?
It's just the American West, yeah, ghost towns, you know, everything that, you know, back in the days when Walter did it, there were still a lot of these towns out there with these buildings just standing. There were mines that got bust.
So how did Independence Hall fit into it then from Philadelphia?
How did what?
How did they fit Independence Hall in with the theme of this?
They just decided whatever he liked, he picked it up and he put it there for a way to, he liked collecting Western stuff. So he had collections of saddles and pistols and what you call it, you know, riding tack and that. And just like Walt decided he'd collect trains and that, so did Walter, you know, start collecting. So
Is this as large as Disneyland in acreage?
No, it's slightly smaller than Disneyland. I'm not sure exactly how the acreage goes, but it does hold its own in size to you know, the Magic Kingdom. You know, now Disney has, of course, California Adventure, but Knott's is a pretty substantial piece of property, totally hemmed in by the city of Buena Park. You know, so they've done some things over the years. Bought a piece of property on the other side of Beach Boulevard, put most of the parking over there, dug a tunnel so you can go across it and not have to you know, cross the traffic. Birdcage Theater over here, you can zoom in a bit. You can go and get your picture taken inside an animal cage, and then again, signs for the shows here. Calico Mine Train. And again, this all started as a way just to keep people entertained for Mrs. Knott's dinner. But I was always interrupting myself before. Most of the ghost towns, of course, you can imagine, people today in an ATV would go out and steal everything blind. But there's one, if you ever get out here, Bodie, California. It's a state park now. Try to go out there in a rental car, not your own car. As Carol and I realized when we drove out there, the road starts out real nice, but then turns out into real authentic dirt road. But when you get out to Bodie, there's a town that looks pretty much like this, still sitting out in the California desert, and luckily maintained. And even when the people moved out of Bodie, they didn't have the money to take everything out, so they left stuff behind you. You can look through the windows and there's their clothes still hanging on a hook and books still sitting on a shelf. So if you're out here, go look up Bodie.
Yeah, Bill, they maintain it in an arrested state of decay.
Yep. Yep. It's a great spot, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's really quite fascinating to go to. There's actually another road into it that's worse than the main road that starts off paved. It's like 16 miles of dusty dirt, fine
Yeah.
dirt road. Oh, that's the really bad one.
Yeah, we were tempted for a while to take that out, and then somebody said, no, none of the BMW, we don't want to do that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, just souvenir shots of people there. But again, 1969, or 1960, this was added. Huge, huge advance in theme park entertainment for 1960. Really got to give Walter and his crew credits for it. And some of the buildings that they brought back were fully intact. Others had decayed, so he just kept them in a state of decay. And off to the cemetery. Let's see if we can see whose grave this is here. Okay, Major Wes Ashen discovered the Apex zinc mine and then died of lead poisoning. Ah, lead poisoning. He got shot. Again, just the views of the whole thing, live donkeys that they would bring in and let people entertain. Ghost Town, he will tell you how to go and do your mining. And again, all man-made. This was all just flat as Disneyland was, and this was all put together and built by Walter and his crew. The lagoon area, I mentioned before, Indian on a dugout canoe. Ah, the goat is not up here on Old McDonald's farm. So right off to the edge here, you can see the edge of the seal enclosure. So we'll go and look to the next shot. Again, this is September 65. We're gonna jump up here to August of 65. And what else would it be without panning for gold? And
You know, when you pan for gold, they actually plant some flakes of gold in your gravel.
yeah,
It's not
otherwise,
real stuff that you're actually finding.
yeah, and I think it might even be fool's gold. Doc Skinham's the world's famous Indian medicine show. So again, he brought all this stuff. This was the sort of stuff Walter was big on. Old wagons and you can see again, just stuff scattered all over the place, buckboards and things along the line.
Bill, on the panning for gold, it actually was gold dust, but it's as you were saying, it was put into the sand and you had such a minuscule, you had like 5 or 6 little pieces of dust of real gold. And after doing a whole pan of sand there, so it was, especially in those days, the price of gold was a fixed price. It was like not even a penny's worth of gold that you were paying 50 cents for. So
When I faked it out, I took a gold nugget with me, a large one, and planted it in the gravel and saying, look what I found. And they were shocked.
That's really funny. Yeah, that when gold was $32 an ounce fixed for it, they could do it. Today, I don't know what they do. We haven't gone for a while. That's really funny, Irv. And again, there are gals at their popcorn wagon. So all sorts of shows and entertainments, a one-man band guy going on here. They've changed over the years. You can imagine people come and go, but they've always had a lot of live entertainment. They have an amphitheater type stage show that they do there. More of the seals. More flamingos. The penguins must have had the day off here. And there's the parking lot right in the back. And the stagecoach here. Downside here, there's a sign for Happy and his Whips. And that's a guy that would come out and do performances. He would put things like out here on the top of the stand, come out with a whip. And, if there were 3 things on top of it, like 3 bottles, he could announce, I'm going for bottle number 2 in the middle. Bam, he'd nail the thing, pull it off the stand with the whip. And he had a bit where his partner would have a cigarette and he would flip the whip and take the cigarette out of her lips, that sort of thing. So well-known performer for whip stuff. An antique clock. See the sign here. 2 years in the making, a unique clock was made by a fine German watchmaker, and it tells the time in 13 countries. So pretty neat piece of mechanical work there. So let's zip through some more pictures here. So again, this was August 65. We're going to go June 76. Again, bicentennial being a big thing for Disneyland. Was also a big time at Knott's. So this particular photographer spent a lot of time over at Independence Hall. By the way, over the years, they've added other things to Knott's. They've got an area called Soak City, which is a water theme park, separate admission than the main park. But this was always kind of off the beaten path of the rest of the Knott's Berry Farm. Again, these are not all fully restored, but a very large effort for the 1960s for Walter to build this. So try to recreate as accurately as possibly could things like the chandeliers inside the real Independence Hall. And the Liberty Bell, you could go up and actually touch the thing. He had Betsy Ross here. He had figures of different things of American history. Now, obviously, Betsy did not do her work at Independence Hall, but they had different things from the time, dioramas and displays in there. So she's here with General George, showing him the flag. And we're going to have some more pictures from the same visit. So again, Betsy, soldier at the time. You can imagine how practical this was to go fight, the war at the time, and dress up in a bright red coat so everybody could see you through the trees and everything. More just general views of inside Independence Hall. And here they are signing the Declaration of Independence, taking that monumental step of declaring freedom. This again, these figures were done in the 60s. Walter did a lot of amazing stuff, but his figures were not all that great. As I mentioned earlier, the ones inside the mine train were particularly, to my way of thinking, amateurish. That's all been changed today with more modern figures that really do credit to the place. And again, Garner Holt, if you're familiar with his work, does amazing work, has out Disney'd in his field of audio animatronics. Again, here's good old Handsome Brady and Whiskey Bill. The statue again of the prospector. More of the flamingos. And again, you can tell amateur shot, whoever took this was more interested in getting the ground and her shadow than the train itself. But this would be inside with some of the exhibits. Again, Walter was real big on history. So here he's got an exhibit about, you can see the wagon train stretching back almost to infinity. And then little figures up here. And some of these, they would have signs. Others little recorded narrations explaining to you the sacrifices our ancestors made in coming out here to California, and the hardships that they had to endure. And it wasn't just Indian attacks; it was drought, other disease along the trail, the lack of food, that sort of thing. So very, very educational sort of thing, which now people go by at 80 miles an hour because they want to go turned upside down on a roller coaster. But this was the sort of thing, again, made Ghost Town a very popular spot to stop at. Train track running across the ground there. So again, we'll zip down. That was October 1971. We're going to go 10 years earlier and go back to December 61 to wrap it up. Oh, we've seen it before, flamingos and cars. It's very interesting what the photographers, how they find so many things in common. Mention this is December. Well, you can see off to the left, they put a giant Christmas tree. Theirs was not on Main Street. Theirs was out in the middle of the lagoon, but all dressed up in antique type of Christmas decorations that you might have found people putting in their homes 100 years ago. And inside here, there's a amphitheater. You can go see there's a sign here for shows. Take a look at it here real quick. So we have entertainment coming up 12:30, 1:30, 2:30, etc. So Western themed singing, dancing, that sort of entertainment. A little blurry there, but ice cream. And flamingos and ducks. Getting ready for the seal to come jump up and ring the bell. In this particular case, they've got a trained bird up here. If we zip in on it, 1 second here. The bird is getting up here to pull the thing, which will ring the bell. In the background, we can see that you can come and feed the animals here at Old McDonald's Farm and buy animal food. And big people got charged 35 cents for food, and little people only got charged 25 cents. So that will take us through Knott's Berry Farm today. And again, if you're in the Southern California area, it's really a great spot to go to. I don't know if I'd go on a Friday or Saturday night right now until they take care of their problems with the folks that like to go there and do stupid stuff, but it's great fun. So I'm just going to go through the chats here and open up to comments or questions or anything that people would like to go through and chat about. And hopefully, is Mary still with us? I don't know if she. Oh yeah, did I make a lot of mistakes, Mary? How did I do? You're still muted there.
Oh, it was very interesting. It was interesting that people are in this group from all over. Being that I live close walking distance to Buena Park or to Knott's, I go there quite often. I went there yesterday. The haunted shack that you mentioned is gone, but there is one that's very similar at Calico in Yermo.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy that. It's still amazing to me. The covered wagons picture you showed towards the end, that was a show that they had along Main Street. I can't remember, but it was where the hotel is, I think. And you could go in. Walter Knott had made it was a diorama, and it followed the pioneers. And you went in, you just stood there, and it was very relaxing, and told the story of them. Let me see what else. I have some notes. The parking lot. You can still park like in old times, but it's the parking lot off Western and La Palma. And there is still the trees, it's still the dirt parking lot. People, tend to park nicely, not pretty much at random, but there is still that old time parking. One more thing.
That's interesting to know. I didn't realize that was some of it's still
Yeah,
there.
it's a bit of a walk, unfortunately. You will usually park where Independence Hall, which is where Soak City is now, and you walk through a tunnel underneath Beach Boulevard, and you go there. One picture that you showed the dog outside the Candy Palace.
Right.
It was always a favorite with my kids when they were little. It's gone. There's so much that's gone. But regarding the characters, they've started the feature called Ghost Town Alive, and it has real actors, Knott's actors, and they interact with the guests, and they just carry on like an Old West kind of a battle between to the bad people in town, and it goes on all day long. And the guests can just interact. It's all family friendly, very family friendly, and it's very immersive and fun. It ends in a whole dance thing at the end of the evening or at the end of the day, like 5:30. I know I'm a real lover of Knott's, and I really appreciate you doing this, Bill, and I thank you very much.
Oh,
That's all.
thanks for the comments. I was just, as you were talking or going through the chats, Glenn Barker mentioned the price of gold had gone up to $10. That was 6 years ago. Today, I hate to think what it would be. Actually, when I was looking for something else, I found some other Knott's pictures. So let me just jump in real quick. Again, the sort of thing that they don't do today, but they would do shootouts in the streets. You can see everybody lined up for it. And they had so many bodies that would come out. The Undertakers all dressed here in black, and they would come out with a wheelbarrow and haul them away. So there they are, taking them away. The dead guy, and let's go get some more. Undertakers asking anybody else want to. I'm dying for business. Anybody ready to go? And they would just stack them up and haul them away. This guy's enjoying it so much he's applauding. So. Shootouts in the streets, and the sheriff and the bad guys would do business out there. And again, these were all the neat little gimmicks, all the little signs and everything else. Most of the signs and stuff, all recreations. The real ones somebody probably took, like right here, for example. Let's go over this one real quick. This is one for tooth powder. If that had been hanging out on a real ghost town building, somebody would have taken it. So, they've recreated a lot of these things, but it really gave you a nice feeling of that. That's the end of that. Now we're over at Marine Land. So let me just finish that. Stop share. So, sorry.
Oh, you mentioned about the shooting in the street in the wheelbarrow. That still takes place. At least it took place last summer when I was there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They brought the wheelbarrow out and they carried them away. Yeah, I did see it last summer.
Great. Good to know that.
Unfortunately, shootings in the street take place almost every day in America now. Unfortunately,
That's very unfortunate.
very unfortunate.
It's the world has definitely changed, there's no doubt. Wayne, you had your hand up? Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, two things. One, didn't they have a huge fire at some point that destroyed a lot of the old or fake old buildings?
I can't recall one at Knott's. We've certainly had our fair Hollywood fires, but I don't remember Knott's having any particularly. Well, Mary's shaking her head too. I don't remember.
Okay, I'm probably confusing that with one of the movie lots.
No, I think they actually had a fire for a while at Calico. And I think that did do some damage out there.
Okay.
Kitchen fire in one of the restaurants. And luckily, I don't think it took out a lot, but I do think they had a fire at Calico a number of years ago. But the movie lots, they've all pretty much all burned down over time.
The other thing is, when I visited, decades ago, you talk about the things he liked to collect. They had one big building that was just full of coin-operated player pianos. And it wasn't a big attraction for the public that walked in. There was only one other person. And so I tried some of them, and I was amazed they were all in tune. And I spoke up and said to this other guy, wow, this is the first time I've seen old Nickelodeons like this that are in tune. And he said, oh yeah, I work constantly to keep them that way.
That's neat. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of that stuff, Cedar's point, the people that bought it over the years took things out. And, just like Disney, the other day I was talking about, I was looking at a roll of pictures somebody took at Disney And the guy, you would have thought he went back there with a time machine to know what was gone, because he's seen on that day to take pictures of nothing but things that are gone. You don't realize how many things are gone until you see the pictures. And the same thing with Knott's. Over the years of the Nickelodeons and that sort of stuff don't get attendance. These things are all run by accountants and stuff. They go into storage. So a friend of mine from Heritage Auctions just recently sold off giant warehouse, and Knott's had kept everything in a warehouse for years and years and years and paying the storage on it. And they finally decided it was time. My friend basically convinced it was time to let it go. It was, rather than just sitting in a warehouse now, people bought, they had entire things like steam locomotives they weren't using. And what they had done in some of the things too is they'd taken stuff from their other theme parks, like other steam trains and that, as they retired them in other parks, they would bring a old stagecoach out and bring it out here in case they ever went to use it at Knott's. So they ended up having a surplus of trains and stagecoaches and stuff that they sold off. Don? You're muted, sir.
There, that's better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I put this in the comments. Does anyone know if the Spirit Lodge is still down? I love that. One of the best Pepper's Ghost attractions I've ever seen, and I'm wondering if they ever got it back working. It's been down. It was down, I guess, 3 years ago.
Yeah, Dan, do you have your hand up about that?
Yeah, I checked the Knott's website and it's still not listed, but I agree. It's a amazing presentation and really well done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people have seen it here, but at the very end, the storyteller, he's holding a walking stick and he disappears and the walking stick falls over. And I figured out how they did it, but man, it was well done. It really was. I've done a few Pepper's Ghosts in my time, and I've never been able to get them that good. So,
Sorry, what was that called again?
a Pepper's Ghost.
No, I know Pepper's Ghost. What was the name of the attraction?
Oh, the Spirit Lodge.
Spirit Lodge. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was
And Knott's, it was
at
called
the-
Mystery Lodge.
Yeah, it was 86. It was the Spirit Lodge at Expo 86 up in Canada. We saw it live there when it was first out there, and it was a spectacular show. It really was quite well done.
Yeah, and knocked your socks off. You had no idea what was coming.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What is a
Yeah.
Pepper's Ghost?
A guy named Pepper was the guy that came up with the way of doing it, and his thing was make somebody look like a ghost. So just
Yeah.
was named in his honor.
Yeah, the technique, it's actually one of the easiest illusions. I've done it in a few haunted houses and a Christmas thing that I direct every year. You're looking actually through glass and you're seeing a reflection of something you didn't know was there. So when you think the reflection is real, getting the lighting right, making sure you can't see the glass is a trick. But when it's done right, a Pepper's Ghost, you can make people appear, disappear. You can make them translucent.
Like at Disneyland Haunted Mansion, especially the big dining room
Ballroom.
scene with the dancing and the ballroom scene, I should say, the dancing and the guy hanging up in the chandelier. So there's two Pepper's Ghosts. There's one above you where you're riding through and one below where all the figures are that are just reflecting on the glass that you think is just glass windows in front of it.
Yeah, they do the lighting so you can't even see the glasses there. It's a huge wall of glass, one of the biggest walls of glass ever made, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys do realize now that you've given away the secrets, we're gonna have to kill them all.
Brock, when I worked,
Yeah,
when I
Go
worked
ahead.
at Disneyland in the magic shop, people would come in and insist it was done with holograms.
Yeah,
I
that's
just go
true.
along with them.
Yeah, everybody would say that Disney has perfected the hologram. It's like, no, just Pepper's Ghost.
Yep.
But also on Knott's Berry Farm, I may have I know we did another show on Knott's Berry Farm about a year ago or so. I think you had some slides or something. But I remember as a kid going there, and it was to pan for gold and see the ghost town. But then I was always looking forward to the dinner at Knott, at the Knott's chicken restaurant, and it was served family style. So they had these big plates of chicken and biscuits and mashed potatoes and gravy and all that sort of stuff. And I also loved boysenberry pie. It was my favorite
pie
kind
is
of
great.
pie. And so I was looking forward to it. and I'd always stuff myself with so much of the dinner that it came time for dessert and I couldn't put another thing in me. And I was just always so disappointed. It was like 3 times before I actually had the boysenberry pie that I convinced myself, or my mom said, you don't really want to have that if you want to have the pie. And it was like, oh, you're right. But the pie was spectacular too.
When Carol and I go, we always make sure we have a cooler in the back of the car because we never going to get through that dinner and we don't get through the pie. She always gets the boysenberry pie and I think I get apple pie. But you know, you cannot come out of Mrs. Knott's hungry, that's for sure. Now I know that people are complaining that about 5 years ago they closed the restaurant for a better part of a year and modernized it and changed it a bit. And a whole bunch of people were yelling and screaming. It wasn't the same as it used to be. And I thought it was good when we went back. We certainly enjoyed it. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, we'd be there every Super Bowl. It's tremendous amount of food. And they still have boysenberry pie if you go back, Brock.
Yep. No, I know they do. I think what the deal was my parents and grandparents came from an era when food, they worried about it spoiling. And so we weren't allowed to, our family wouldn't let me take some home because, by the time you eat it tomorrow, it'll be spoiled and you'll get sick. Yeah. So I could never get it. And where nowadays you go to any restaurant, including Knott's, if you want to order the pie to go, you can do it. They put it in a nice container and off you go. But as a kid, that just wasn't something the family did. And so I was always stuffing myself with these plates of chicken and biscuits and stuff. And then I would, go like, oh no, I don't have room for the pie. I remember riding home in the car and my stomach was so sore because I had it so full of stuff. It's just like, why do I make myself so miserable? And I didn't get the pie either.
Yeah, you think you'd learn after some time. So it took you a few years, but you finally got your pie.
Yeah, well, we would only do that once a year. We'd go to Knott's. And so it was like a big thing. And I just couldn't believe all this food they bring to the table, and everything. And I was just a dumb kid.
That's funny. Yeah, it's again, Knott's is very different than Disneyland, and that's part of why it makes it special. If it was another Disneyland, it wouldn't be what it is. Like I've tried to mention, I think Knott's, they did some really good stuff over the years. With the mine train, the log flumes. I mean, they were well before anything Disney did like that. And then the amount of live entertainment they had was always a lot higher. To me, the number of street performers in that, than Disney had, because they were trying to keep everybody busy waiting to go to the restaurant. So, Disney, we really got the science down of putting people on lines, up and down at front of Pirates or whatever. Knott's took it to a different level, let them wander around the whole damn park. And when you're in a shop, maybe you're going to buy one of those, fake newspapers or, antique something or whatever. So it's a fun spot.
I changed the subject. I changed the subject a little while I got you here. Can you or somebody tell me how to change the darn name under my picture?
Yeah.
Actually.
I've been playing around for 2 weeks and I can't change it.
I taught just a minute ago. Well, give me a second. I'll have that up for you. I just found it.
If I click on it and you click on the more, it says replace pin, hide self view. I cannot get that name changed.
Okay. If you see your photo up on top, yeah. Okay. Click on that. Click on the dot. And then in the middle, you'll see rename.
Nope, it says mute my audio, stop, choose virtual background, replace pin, hide self view, no rename.
Okay, I guess I can rename you because I'm a co-host, but
I probably
for that a clue you name me. Who did that?
I think I probably turned off the let people rename themselves feature, because in the past when we had some problem with Zoom bombers, people were using the rename themselves feature to throw up profanity. So
now you're going to call me without a clue.
Hey, Irv, what would you like to be called?
Just Irv Gleaner, just my name.
What? I don't know how you spell your last name, sir.
Gleaner.
Gleaner. Irv Gleaner. There
My
you go.
still says rename at the bottom of that
There
screen.
you go.
Yeah, but you're signed on as a host, co-host.
Oh, okay.
Yes, those three dots should have been, there were an option there to rename, but there isn't.
You're not a co-host, that's why.
Yeah, and again, I
Oh,
think
see,
I
my
turned that
wife
off.
had a Zoom
Gotta
call,
be
she changed
special.
it, I can't get it back. That's better now.
Well, hopefully it stays that way for you for the next time.
Yeah, it's good. It's been bothering me.
Well,
Hey, Billy,
great.
another, am I on? Is this working? Hello?
Yeah, hi,
Yeah.
Glenn.
I'm a sound guy too.
I was just thinking the irony of that.
I was gonna say, you did mention a couple of my favorite things in there in Knott's was the Mott's, I think it was called Mott's Miniatures. Remember they had that big room filled with all kinds of miniature houses, and they played up the 2-inch TV set that was in there. And then they had Jeffrey's Barn, which was a boxing ring that was in Burbank, and they moved it down there.
Yeah, I think the barn's gone now. I only meant, there were a whole bunch of things one could mention about Knott's. I only went with the ones I had pictures for the most part to try to illustrate. But yeah, they took, again, I would love to go through when I did it, particularly back before we had kids, go over there and just look at the dioramas and the exhibits and that sort of thing. Once you get the kids, they want to go on the sombrero hat ride, or today Camp Snoopy is a really great spot for bringing kids. As I'm not, Carol and we're not really into roller coasters, so we tend not to go to Knott's very much because I don't need to be spun on my head. But just the ambiance of going through the Camp Snoopy area, we live right up near Magic Mountain, and they had a Bugs Bunny World up there. The difference between Camp Snoopy and Bugs Bunny World was night and day. Camp Snoopy so much better. So again, if you took a look at the park today, I said I stayed away from anything basically post 70s, the thrill rides and all the rest of it. But if I went and took out my family photos, my brother and his kids came out. Carol and I, took our kids. We all went to Knott's and rode all the modern stuff, but I just left those out for today.
Another favorite thing was the Scoopy gumball machines where the little baker boy would get the gumball and then drop it in the chute. Those are, I think, selling for about $5,000 now.
I don't remember that one. What was it?
Well, look up on the internet, either Scoopy or Baker Boy, and it's like a little house, and there's a baker in there with a little chef's hat. And when you put your penny in and you turn the crank, you actually wind the motor, and he takes his scoop and goes over to a little door, opens up, and the ball falls in it, and then he turns over and drops it in a chute, and then you get the gumball.
Oh, wow. And that's an antique item, or?
Oh yeah, they were made, probably back in the 40s or so. And there were several of them around, but they're all gone now. And you see them on eBay once in a while. But like I said, they're outrageous.
By the way, I did put size comparisons in the chat. So initially Disneyland is 100 acres and Knott's was, I think, 57, 58. I forgot what I wrote. Now Knott's is about 160 and the whole Disneyland resort is 500 acres.
Okay, it's great to have the size. As long as we got people here, if people want to stay for a minute, I can show you some more recent views of Knott's. Recent being approximately 20 years ago, but give you an idea of what Camp Snoopy has changed to. So 1 second. Let's see. Share screen. I think by now I know where it was. This is taking the family here when my brother and his kids came to town, and going in, and they're all grown up. But for the folks that haven't seen it, again, if you've got kids, Camp Snoopy is a really cute area to go to. So off to the right, you can see one of the rides, the more modern theme type things, lift you up and then drop you down. Sort of a very, very cheap version of the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. But I just got a kick out of stuff like the airmail thing. And boy, my son is now about twice that height. He's Neil on the right there. But again, they've had the Snoopy, the Peanut characters out walking through the park area for years. There's more Camp Snoopy. Carol's looking real happy. And this again is what they've changed out so many of the things, taking out the lagoons and that sort of stuff. You can see one roller coaster in the back where you shoot all the way up, hang there, and then go sliding back down. The corkscrew ride has been replaced by another more modern roller coaster. This was one that you, again, take you up to the top, drop you back down. They had unfortunately, an accident on this a couple of years ago where a cable snapped and took off somebody's foot. So not a ride I'd want to go. But
Well, to build this, did they reduce the size of the Western Village or just add on more acreage?
no, they basically took out other stuff like the lagoon and other things along that line. Bumper cars. Penny for gold. It was only $5 20 years ago. We were able to get a real bargain at that point in time. You can see it's moved though. It's no longer in that giant mountain area. And that's one of the things they did, was they took out some things like the Penny for gold, which had the giant river behind it and a giant mountain in front of it, picked it up and moved it into a different area in the, Ghost Town area, but now it was a very small piece of the land. And they could reuse the mountain area, tear that down, put something else in its place.
Kind of lost the charm of the original idea.
Yeah, but it's still there. And as you can see, it lost its charm to us, but 3 kids here all having a great time at it. Very enthusiastic. My son still has his bottle of gold sitting on his dresser top up in his room.
And you can see they've also added a shade structure because the original one was always out in the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can also see we're wet because we've gone on the rapid ride. And the train again. Fence now that keeps you from walking in front of the train. Neil getting ready to see if he could imitate Brock and eat an entire chicken by himself. And we're off at the Santa Monica, so we'll end and that. So yeah, again, Knott's is a great chance of doing it. If another piece occurs, I'll let you know about it. Be great, Dennis. And I do owe you some research I've been doing for you on something else, so I'll get in touch with you. Yeah, these days, I tell you though, even if Knott's is free, I'm not going because of the virus. I mean, just every single person I know that's gone to a theme park or gotten in an airplane or something has gotten sick. So the numbers out here in California are through the roof. We're about a week away from masks being required indoors again. Excuse me. So like I said, Carol and I, how many, sorry. How many people here are still in the I haven't got it yet club? Okay, a few.
I got what? The COVID yet or the shots?
Yeah, well, I've had shots and vaccinations and everything else, but
I got all the shots and all the boosters.
yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't keep you from getting it anymore. It just keeps you from getting really sick.
yeah,
Yeah, you could have it and not even know it now. It's just a mild case.
yeah.
Well, Bill, we spent 3 days at Disneyland and stayed at the Disneyland Hotel and went to the parks every day. And then spent a week up in Monterey. And outside of the coughing and the, no, we haven't been sick at all.
Outside the coughing.
Yeah, you hope.
Yeah, other than the blood coming out of my ears, I'm doing fine. Yeah, great.
Hey, if even the president can catch it, who's safe?
Yeah, well, he goes and meets with more people these days than I do. I mean, my interactions with people generally tends to be 30, you know how fast you're going, and how did you possibly hit that car? So, but, I tell you, when I get to the station, I have to go and meet with my watch commander. I mask up, I run in, I run out of there, and I feel like I'm in the black hole of Calcutta. And, you know, it's really funny. One of them a couple weeks ago was like, you don't need to wear a mask. You're not going to get sick. I said, oh, well, I'm not going to take my chances. I didn't see him for 2 weeks. And when I went back in the other day, he was wearing a mask and he said, you know, I really wish I had listened to you. I've been sick as a dog. So we just don't go anywhere. We don't go to do anything. And we're just trying to stay safe.
Well, aren't you concerned with some of the people you're running into out on the patrols?
I tend not to get within touching length of them, Glenn, to be totally honest with you. You know, which I've never wanted to do anyway, because you don't want anybody grabbing hold of you. But I tend, you know, particularly if somebody's hyperventilating or whatever, it's all crap. You know, go get a bag out of the car and hand it to them at you know, arm's length to try to get them to calm down. But I don't get into things like you know, going to weddings or things where you're giving people hugs and that sort of stuff. So I figure if I stay outdoors at arm's length from people, so far, knock wood, you know, been okay. But yeah, most of the people we run into are inside a smashed up car and we try to get them back out. So we don't.
I got a wedding 2 weeks from the day, so I'm gonna be in that situation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully someday we'll be done with this because after 2 years of being home, I'm really ready to get out. Tom, you haven't been to Knott's since '89. You got to go. It's again a great spot. It's changed over the years, but it's good. Dan, you had your hand up?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I have a couple of other thoughts since I
Yeah,
grew up
sure. Go ahead.
in the area. The grave in Ghost Town had the sound of the heart beating, but if you stood on the grave, you could also feel the heart thumping against the bottom of your feet.
Oh, that's cool.
The blacksmith was a real blacksmith making horseshoes, and you could actually go and see and forge the horseshoes there. The shops near the chicken restaurant, they made candy canes. You could actually see them fabricate the candy canes from scratch and how it was done, which was kind of a unique thing. The corkscrew roller coaster was the prototype done by Aero Development, and Knott's just bought it intact as a demo and made it a ride. It was finally taken out and moved to Cedar Point Amusement Park, where it's there today. And not mentioned because it's modern is Ghost Rider, which is one of the top-rated wood roller coasters with enthusiasts out there.
Yeah, if you go walking in, you know, you mentioned where the shops outside, you can come walking from the parking lot over to the main gate, and you actually walk underneath the Ghost Rider. And as it goes over, you can hear, you know, creaking and groaning and very authentic sound. It reminded me of the Coney Island roller coasters that I grew up with back in New York, you know, the classic wooden coasters. But what's really great is that they've, you know, it's a lot of maintenance on that thing, and they keep it in great shape, and it's still super, super popular.
For those into architecture and engineering, look at what they had to do to make sure cars driving underneath it didn't run into it.
Yeah.
Do you still ride the coasters, or are you getting too old for that stuff?
You asking Dan?
Either any of you. You still ride those? I'd find I get more dizzy on them now.
You know, it's really funny you mentioned dizzy. I had a problem a couple weeks ago, if people may remember, where I ended up with a severe inner ear issue. It laid me totally out in the hospital. And I had a checkup this past week with my doctor, and he said, oh, everything's looking great, but there's this thing you do called the Epley maneuver where you reset the crystals in your ear. And I wanted to make sure I was doing it right. And I was wearing a Disney shirt at the time. And he said, you're retired from Disney, right? I said, yeah. And he goes, and you live near Knott's, near Magic Mountain. I said, right. And he goes, well, that's the way most people find a way to cure this. If you have this inner ear thing, you go on and ride a roller coaster and it resets your inner ear and you'll be just fine. I don't know if I'm going to pay $150 or something to go into a theme park to go and reset my ear, but
Does it work? Does it work?
he swears it works. And I went online, and you know, it was really funny because I had this condition, I'm reading about it, and a whole bunch of people were saying that's exactly what they do. They go to a theme park and they ride the roller coasters and reset their ears on it. And this entire thing in somebody's wiki article about, you know, the roller coasters at Magic Mountain, and how whenever this thing hits him, he goes out, rides the roller coaster, and he's fine for a year, 2 years. So I've never been a super roller coaster fan, but I do like when Corkscrew first came out. I think the week it opened, a whole bunch of us from Disney went over there to try it out and ride it. I'm basically, I'll do everything once, and some things I'll do twice. Like Space Mountain, I'll still ride, no issue. But some of the roller coasters where they totally turn you upside down and you're hanging from your shoulders and that sort of thing. The kids will want to do it, and again, Dad will do it once, but fool me once, but shame on me, sort of thing. How about you, Dan? Do you ride them much anymore?
Sorry, me?
Yeah.
I am selective in my roller coasters. The Ghost Rider wood roller coaster, I really enjoy it. It's a wonderful coaster at Knott's. The worst roller coaster I've been on is the one at Prim going into Nevada on the way to Vegas, which was for a while the tallest, fastest roller coaster, but it's metal and it sticks straight up and it's not braced very well because it's like in the parking lot. And that is like riding a paint shaker.
No. No, I've never enjoyed being spun in circles. So if it's something like Corkscrew was a bit of a thing because it is obviously a circle. And it's funny, like when I go flying, I can fly and do acrobatics and I can be fine myself. If my partner's flying, after 20 minutes, I start turning green. So it's just a matter of what you get used to. But
well, Bill, I think I have you beat. One time some years ago, one night we had to put the Red Hot Chili Pepper soundtrack on Space Mountain, and we had to ride that thing about 30 times in a row. I think most I rode was 8 without getting off. And then at midnight, when we finished that, we had to go out to California Screaming and put it on there and ride that over and over. And it was raining. You ever ride a roller coaster in the rain? It's like getting stung by bees.
They run faster in wet tracks too.
Yes, yeah. So that was my probably record. I should have written down how many times because it would have made the Guinness book.
yeah, you'd be up there. I remember when we were building Space Mountain, and might have mentioned as another talk, but for people that weren't familiar with it, we had this really brilliant concept that you could automatically dispatch the sleds based on the performance of each individual sled. So, and then there was a scale that when you came into the station, you got on, it would weigh it, and the computer would calculate the coefficient of friction for this particular sled, and then the weight of the people on it. And this one we could dispatch in whatever, say 7 seconds, this would be 13, this would be 11. So it was a great concept, except they found out that the sandbags will sit there inertly and behave themselves. People tend to move and everything, and it threw the numbers all off. But first we ran it forever with sandbags, and then we had to get people to run it to see how it worked. And my job was to go into the in-between, the employee cafeteria, and say, hey, how would you like to be the first guys to go on Space Mountain? And we'd put them on there and we'd ride them through it a number of times with stopwatches and calculating the time for it. And we realized after about 8 times, the number of times you want to go in, we'd help people out, and we'd have to lean them against the wall because they weren't able to stand anymore. I mean, their inner ear was just totally off. We also realized we needed to go to custodial and get a whole bunch of yellow buckets because people were just barfing. You just come to the cafeteria having a cheeseburger and onion rings, and we stick them on Space Mountain and take them around 8 times in a row.
Now, a while ago, you said it would reset their inner ear.
Well, yeah, but again, if you have the condition I had, it would reset it. If you were just a normal guy, you would just feel like you were going in circles. Disney did a thing a number of years ago for charity for running how many times people could ride Space Mountain, and you got a chance to put up money for people that I'll go ride it. $10 a throw. How many people are going to go do it? And I think they got them up to the 20s that people were riding it. So somewhere somebody could go look that up for the record number, but they didn't have to go and ride it another one right after that in the rain like Glenn.
That's not a very large coaster as coasters go. It doesn't even go as fast as some of the biggest coasters.
No, but I tell you, the fact that it was indoors and you know, the whole thing for spatial orientation was totally thrown off when you're in there. It's
Yeah,
dark.
it's
You
disorienting.
see the track in front of you. All of a sudden, you don't know which way you're going. Super successful. Again, you got to stop and think back. You know, that the damn thing's coming up on 50 years old now. You know,
Mhm.
it's,
Yeah, that's right.
wow.
Yeah, it also has a lot more changes in direction than your standard coaster because it is going so slow. And that's what really gets you is that the turns and the helices. Those will really nail you. So
Pretty much all left turns. I think then there's one big right one at the end.
Yeah.
But when we were trying to come up with ideas for what kind of music to put on there, we took a bunch of creative folks down and put headphones on them, and I had to play a CD player and switch tracks and everything while we're riding. So that was kind of fun.
Did you do it with the lights on or the lights off?
Lights off.
Because with the lights on, it's even scarier to me. When you see that steel coming at you, and then you know you see a steel beam, and then all of a sudden you dip down under it and everything. But you know, when you ride that sucker with the lights on, wow, that's an experience.
Yeah, and some people get to do that when it breaks down, and then they have to bring them back.
Yeah. Well, do you remember in Florida we had to smooth it out because it kept breaking people's tailbones?
Wow.
They had a point where you went to
I wasn't
negative.
in on that one.
Yeah,
That's another tale.
it was in Florida. We had the two tracks, Alpha and Omega, I guess it is.
Mhm.
And, yeah, one of them had a spot where you definitely hit a negative G, and you were going down as the car was coming up, and it started breaking tailbones at a very unacceptable rate. So they had to go and that was about 3-4 years into it to smooth that one out. So you know, oops, you learn. The
Wait,
sandbag-
there's an acceptable tailbone.
I was gonna say.
I would tell you yes, but then I'd have to kill you again. So,
Yeah, I think it's one per million or something like that. I don't know.
you know, that's the trouble. You put sandbags on it, they don't complain, right? You know,
Yeah.
but you learn by doing. You know, yeah, with all these rides, you have to have some sort of risk on them, or they would be as dull as hell. Harold.
Just
Hey,
wanted to mention that when you showed the stage for the medicine show, it was Dr. Maldemer's medicine show.
Mhm.
Maldemer is French for seasickness.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
Dr. Seasickness's medicine show. And I thought that was an interesting little in-joke they had there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I you know, as soon as I see it, I know what Maldemer means, because I get it all the time. So,
But great presentation, really enjoyed it today.
oh, thanks. Yeah, it's Maldemer. You know, no, I'm gonna get myself sick just thinking about it. When I go, we haven't gone for years, but Carol and I go scuba diving. As soon as I put the wetsuit on and you know, get out in rough water, my body inner core heat would go up and I would just turn green. So Carol would be fine and I'd just be turning green on the boat next to her. Talking about seasickness, Carol. Like when we went out with Rusty on his little boat down in the Long Beach, I thought I was gonna die.
I remember several episodes of seasickness.
Yeah. So, you know, and then once you get in the water, okay, you know, you get down below the surface action, it's okay. But, you know, when you're going scuba diving and you're feeling nauseous, the last thing you want to be is relying on the regulator. That was one of the things they do teach you in classes. If you do get sick, how to clear your regulator. So, well, I hope everybody enjoyed their trip back to Knott's and or first time to Knott's for folks. Thanks for joining us, Mary. Any of the old talks are on the website at the same link. This one will be up in a day or two whenever I get around to doing it. And I think next week, probably going to do Disney and mid-century architecture, but I'm not entirely sure. So I hope, I know the East Coast has been having and the central states have been having a terrible heat wave.
Oh, yeah.
So I hope people are doing okay with that. And, you know, it's starting to cool off a little here. It was 20 degrees cooler yesterday than it was when I was out on patrol on Monday. And I was very glad for the drop. 20 degrees was very welcome. So hope everybody has a real good week and look forward to seeing you later on then.
Thanks, Phil. Good talk.
Thank you very much, Bill. Very nice.
Thanks, Bill.
Right, bye.
Bill?
See you next
Yeah,
week.
yeah, sure, Wayne.
Yeah, I just had a wild thought. I've been saving the chats on many of these presentations, and I wonder if you save them. And if you do, what do you think about posting them to your website to go with the videos?
I haven't been saving them, but if you have them, yeah, we can work that out together, and I could put up a little, text area for, for the chats. Yeah, 'cause I don't think we've said anything terrible about anybody, so we can do that.
Yeah, I have all of them too. I saved them before we shut down, so.
Oh, okay, great. I will work with both you guys and see how we work that out. Great
Yeah,
suggestion.
Don, I have a rather spotty collection. If you have them all, that would be the best source.
Well, yeah, I'll take a look. I have, if not all, I have probably 90%.
Yeah, there were a couple that Don played hooky on, and he went off touring without us, so one of those holes.
Okay, well, do a survey and let me know, and I'll see if I have fill-ins.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'd love to complete the collection. So,
Okay, we'll do that. And then, great, okay, appreciate it. We'll see you all soon.
See you next week, Bill.
see you later, Bill.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.